Hey, Laura, when you get a chance, could you also, thank you for doing this, the one that lists which job is in which classification?
Okay. Yep.
Thank you.
Does she have a copy of the new contract?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
Got the pay scale, but not
do
the
you
classification.
have the corrected one?
Yep. Yep.
Because we have not received that yet.
Well, we have what we have. So, I mean, it's correct. You ready, Michelle, or?
I'm ready.
All right. Well, let me start, then we'll elect a chairperson. Melinda called and, she's some health issues today, so she will not be here. So I'll call the meeting to order. Roll call.
Commissioner Robbins,
Here.
Commissioner Wessel,
Here.
Commissioner Lautner, absent with prior notice.
All right, Pledge of Allegiance. Rick, would you like to lead us in the prayer, the Pledge of Allegiance?
Of the United States of America. To the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. Okay. Approval agenda, any late items, additions, deletions?
Move to approve the agenda is listed. Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. All right. Public comment?
I have public comment. You want me just to stay?
Yes, they,
Okay.
why don't you come up here just so we can get on
Okay.
the record here? How about over there?
Okay,
We'll make this a public comment here.
all
outside.
right.
Thanks. Jennifer Grant, Register of Deeds for the record. I wanted to say thanks for finally looking at these wage schedules for the union. It's good to see that they've finally gotten up to where we need to be. And obviously, we don't need to go into the whole $20 an hour McDonald's, whatever. And the non-union schedules today that you're looking at, I'm glad that you guys are looking at those too. I just wanted to point out discrepancy in my office, and that's, I don't know about the other ones, but last year when I was register-elect, I had to come to you to get my chief deputy, so she didn't have to take a pay cut to become chief deputy and have more responsibility as a supervisor. She's going from union to non-union, so that puts her as at-will employee. And looking at the wage schedules now between union and non-union, I calculated a 12-cent, she's making 12 cents more than who she's in charge of right now. So I feel like that, that we need to look at these schedules. Thank you for looking at them. If she were to come in at the beginning wage right now as chief deputy, she would have to, in being at the top of the scale for the union, she would have to take a $2.23 pay decrease just to come in as a supervisor and have more responsibilities. And that's my comment. And I thank you guys for looking at these finally, and let's get it corrected. I know that this has been going on for a long time and it's time to get it corrected. So thank you.
See, I heard yesterday it was 11 cents, so that means she picked
Yeah.
up a penny.
Well, I
I said
double
11
checked.
cents.
We had this discussion and I thought it was about 11 cents. And so I
Aha,
doubled.
see, that's what I got. See, just like.
I
you
just
in the
thought
high-
maybe she picked up an interest.
Well, that was my latest calculation. So,
So between last night and today, we found out it's 12
12
cents, not
cents.
11.
Yeah.
And we know Lynn Herman is just over 5 foot versus 4 foot level. So
she came in and tried and she can't reach, so we know that.
I measured her this morning.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
yeah, thank you, guys.
Come on up. And you are, sir?
Jim Kiesel, Under Sheriff. Along the same lines of Ms. Grant, I would agree. Currently, the starting pay for the undersheriff would be less than the lieutenant. Now, in my position, I promoted up and through, but in theory, every 4 years, we could have a new undersheriff. I think it would be a severe injustice if you brought in a new undersheriff every 4 years and they made less than their subordinates. So I believe too, the sheriff and the undersheriff scales are probably not in line with where they should be compared to their subordinates. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
John,
Might as well.
make it 3 for 3 here. If
John
you keep,
Gallagher, County Treasurer, real quick, just echo everything that they said. I'm supportive of the review of the non-union pay scale. And additionally, under number 7, other topics, if we could possibly get an update on what this board is looking at for the 1.8 deficit in their fiber optic, because that's got me a little concerned too. Thank you.
I believe that's all public comment. It's all 3 of you have spoken. Thank you for not taking the full 5 minutes. And Mr. Wessel has brought donuts, and I confirm that members of the audience can have a donut. All right, election of chairmen, next on the agenda.
I move to elect Melinda Lautner.
Second.
Okay, she was the prior chair. And she's not here today, but all those in favor of Melinda?
Aye.
All right, I promised her I'd give her a call after this meeting, so I'll break the good news
I
to her.
bet she was nervous.
Oh, I think she, yeah. Well, what's the old saying, if you miss a meeting, what happens? So, all right, and then since she's not here, our tradition has been that the most senior board member chair the rest of the meeting, so that'd be you, Mr. Wessel. Senior board member in terms of on the board, not age, just want to clarify.
She's at my computer and I showed her where it was and what to.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go down the agenda. We have minutes of January 28th, 2021.
We approved the minutes of January 28, 2021.
Support. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we have fiscal year 2021 audit update.
Yeah, Jen's, it's that time of year. We've been working on the audit. I think Jen has restarted. Want to just give a brief update on where we are?
Sure. For the 2021 audit, February 28th falls within the work week. So the last invoices will be posted as far back as possible to December 31st and any journal entries. Once that's all taken care of, I will be reviewing the general ledger, looking to see if there's any corrections that need to be made. If there are no corrections made, we send the trial balance and the ledger off to the audit firm and get started from there. This year, Raymond has stated that they may be on site. They were not last year for the principal audit team. Sometimes the cash auditors can be. So they did state that with COVID, that they feel that they could do some on-site versus just remote. And then once the audit is finalized and everything is reviewed, there's a draft sent. And then once that is okay, there's a presentation to the board, usually in June, and submission of the F-65 to the state level, as well as there's a report where I go ahead and I put in our retirement, the state's looking to make sure that we're not too far out of line with our liability to MERS. And that's what a report in the past I have done. So that's the update.
Well, thank you for your efforts. I know Sarah's been gone on maternity leave, so it causes a little more work for you and Johanna. We do have Kathy Harsfeld working 3 days a week, so that has helped some, but still extra effort for everyone because everything has to be done. This just adds to the list of things, but I think we're progressing well. And
Yep, very well.
Well, we have a history of 8+ audits. Are we going to continue with that this year?
I certainly hope so. I mean, I don't see anything that popped up in 21 that would be a cause of concern. I know that there'll be more paperwork substantiated from the treasurer's office regarding the bond that was redone. So that'll look different in the financials because that was handled. But otherwise, no, I don't foresee anything. I haven't talked with John about how Northport's looking with their sewer, but they've been on schedule, payments have been made, so there shouldn't be any red flags that I'm aware of.
John, anything you'd like to add? No. We're hoping to be a smooth process. We're not aware of any issues with any of the budgets.
And we've been having, Chet and I have been having weekly meetings or talking as often as possible about the progression of the transition. And we meet the 17th with Raymond. They'll be coming here. They'll be meeting with the treasurer's office, the clerk's office, and my office along with Chet. And we'll be discussing who does what and who's responsible for that. Since it's been held within one office the last 26 years, it makes it a little complicated as to split. And then we're looking about March 1st to have a meeting with Raymond on the human resources side. I have been in communication with Grand Traverse County in regards to what a human resources director does, and then also what their specialist does. So for instance, on a benefit package, when I come and we sit down with a new employee, let's just say we have someone new, I go over all the benefits with them, or the clerk does is HR. After that, the packet is delivered to the payroll and finance, and everything is handled from there. So in those regards, it's who can touch the bill and who can enroll an employee in Blue Cross, who can touch the bill in Unum, who can enroll in short-term, long-term life. So those are the things that we're really looking at. As I've told Chet from the beginning, this is like brain surgery or back surgery. You are separating, trying to take the nerve endings and move them so that everything is being done and handled and nothing is dropped or missed or cut off that shouldn't be, or, you know, so that this is smooth for everyone.
Yeah. I thought we had a very good dialogue with Dean Bott. He's a Grand Traverse County Finance Director. Yeah, I thought he gave some very good advice to you. And we, like Jen said, we met with Mr. Peacock once, and they're coming in here because there are certain things by law that are mandated that certain people have to do. And so we want to make sure we don't miss any of that. And it's the behind the scenes thing that, like you said, it's like surgery.
Yep.
I look at it as a big jigsaw puzzle, but actually surgery is more critical because you can't miss anything. So the big picture we know how to get to. It's the smaller things, like if someone wants to switch their benefits, who's going to be doing that? I mean, someone physically has to go in there and do that type of work. So we just want to make sure everyone's will understand what their roles are and who's responsible for what. So for the employee or the external person, they'll see the smoothest transition. It's just the behind the scene things. I think we're making progress.
Yeah.
It's too bad there aren't 8 days a week. I understand that you were here on Saturday and Sunday.
Yes, yes. Nothing changes, I think, in that realm of the workload. I mean, you're trying to put back, you know, millions of dollars basically in 28 days, as well as the full payroll. So everybody got their paychecks for the first paycheck, but all those wages get booked back to the previous year. And people don't realize, so let's say if you have a $250,000 payroll, everything gets hit line by line. So if there's overtime in the sheriff's department, that line gets hit by that amount. And so it's time
And then
consuming.
on top of that, with the new labor contracts, we had to redo all the pay scales for.
Yes, that was,
So
I had to implement
That's
those as
another big step,
soon as I could.
yeah.
Mhm.
But it's February, what is today? 9th?
It's February
And I think,
9th. Yep, tomorrow,
everything's
today
progressing.
is my 30th day anniversary. It's
You're
30
what?
days.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I saw that you haven't been here 30 years.
Nope, 30 days today.
So the good news is we're progressing. I don't think we've missed anything.
Nope.
And we're just doing it one day at a time and making progress. And I'm still gonna choose Sarah for not checking with us when she decided to have a baby. You know, we could have planned that schedule a little better, but now, and I'm saying she's doing well and the baby's doing well.
Yep, we have lots of pictures. Been,
Henry, right?
Henry.
Yep. So
Yep.
that's good. And hopefully she'll be back here in April sometime, hopefully. So.
Well, thank you, Jen.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
On the pay scale, I thought we're sort of not going to resolve everything today, but I want to just give you an overview of it and then kind of, I think we're going to have a series of meetings to get this done because we want to do it right. We want to rush into this. But as you know, last year during the budget process, I brought up the fact that Jen worked with me on this pay scale. And it's been in existence before you got here.
Yeah. How long? 90s?
That was probably done in the early 90s under a totally different.
Yeah,
administration.
so anyway, we really, as far as I've been here, since I've been here, we've never even looked at it really on where people are and so forth, but I think what brought it to my attention this summer was, and I'll take the names out of it, when you look at the senior service director position and the maintenance director position, they start off almost the same with the senior services being a little bit higher. It's not on here because that's when we revised, but in those scale, that position starts off a little higher. If we hire two people on day one, the senior services director and the maintenance director, the senior services was making about $500-600 more. But at the end of 4 years, that position was getting several $1,000s less. And I thought, well, that doesn't make any sense. How can you start off at this level and end up like this? I mean, so I started looking at that. And then I looked at the bigger scale, then some other issues came up. I noticed the sheriff's situation, the sheriff and under sheriff, and the same thing with Jen brought up about her staff, and then the chief deputies and everything. So as you know, this summer, I said, let's look at it, but we want to get through the labor contracts first, which we did, and they're implemented and approved. We're in the final stages of getting the modifications done, so we can them all signed, but pay scales have been implemented. But what I did is I asked Jen last summer to look at the steps. You know, we have a starting scale, then, 1, 2, 3, and 4 years. And logically, you think the raise would be the same from each position, but it wasn't. As I understand, Michelle, please feel free, since you're the only one that's been here. When these positions were created at some point, an internal decision was made, I believe, by a prior administrator just to set up where the pay scales are in 1, 2, 3, 4. And so some of them range as little as 2-3%, and some are high as 20-some%. And so that's where you get a situation like we do with the maintenance and senior services. So there was no
They were handled.
help you out here since you were here.
Handled by the administrator with no financial analysis to look at the percentage differential between these positions, moving horizontally across these, as well as looking vertically in relationship. So when you go and you start looking at them, you may see a 9% differential in one place and a 20-some% differential. You look at a differential between even, and I'll just focus more on the elected officials because they all have a second in command. You look at the differential in pay between perhaps the sheriff and the under sheriff, the treasurer and their chief, the clerk and their chief. The differential is not consistent as to what the spread should be. And you're going to see more consistency in where those wages are when the advice was sought through me and my chief as far as percentage wise. New people that have been brought on, we've tried to get more a recommendation because it's always the decision always rests with the board and no one else. To get that percentage more consistent because there is true inconsistencies, whether it be in the court or non-elected officials, there lacks consistencies. All the positions aren't going to pay the same. That's just see that. But there's such big spreads in these percentages that don't make sense. I mean, that's a good.
Yeah. Look at the planning director position. If you look at the starting pay versus the 4-year, it's about 9%. The maintenance director, it's 5% increase per year. So the planning director got 2.8, something like that, Jen?
2.2, yep.
Yeah, I'm just trying to say, they got approximately 2% a year. Other people got 5%. Some people got 20% increase year after year. And it just was no rhyme or reason. At least since I've been here, we've always, when we create new positions, I would work with Jen and Michelle. So if you look at the newer position, there is uniform steps there. But prior to that, it was truly hodgepodge.
Back in probably the early 90s when they did one study and they did set some of this up. Some of these scales were set, and that's a danger of job studies. And a lot of people don't understand the turmoil that a job study and wage analysis can bring. But there was a thought when some of these were set up that 1 year it would be percentage, 1 year it would be a dollar amount in percentage to maybe keep some semblance between those on that and those on other scales. But there was a strong movement on the board's part that they weren't interested in that. This is your management team. And they weren't going to go with that philosophy.
Andrew's slide yesterday on taxes, where he talked about people needing to know that the fairness in the tax system would apply to this as well. That we need to make sure that everybody feels like there's consistency and fairness.
So if you look at the positions that were created, let's say in the last 5 years, the senior services resource coordinator, the senior services care coordinator, the IT technician, the emergency management assistant director. Those scales are all consistent in terms of the increase, in the percentage increase. We kind of use that same scale. If you look at senior services now, we did that because the board approved that last September, I think. If you look at the new ones we created this year, the finance director and the human resource director, it's the same percentage year after year for all those positions. But the other ones truly have been kind of hit and miss. I think depending who the person was, when they were hired, who the administrator was. So we do need to look at a couple of other issues. And today I'm just going to bring up these issues and then we can talk about how you want to go forward. Michelle brought up a good point. I've been involved with 3 different wage studies, different places where I work. Everyone's in favor of them until you get the results. No matter how you do it, you're going to get people upset because everyone has feelings of how they should be treated, where they should be located in the scale. And classic examples, this was maybe 10 years ago, Grand Traverse County spent $100,000 on a wage scale. Everyone's in favor of it. They got the results back. No one liked it and it never went anywhere. They just did another one right now. They're in the process. So Jen's been talking about them too. So that's an issue. One issue that just surfaced recently, and actually Jen brought it up, but I was going to bring it up anyway. If you look at the chief deputy positions, and that's treasurer, clerk, and register of deeds, by law, they have to have a chief deputy. And that's at the discretion of the elected official. One thing I did find out that I did not realize until last week, because it's never been an issue here, within that 4-year period, the elected official's salary cannot be lowered. Also, the chief deputy's salary cannot be lowered by law. So these terms that expire, the current elected officials and the chief deputies, they expire December 31st, 2024. So that time period, those salaries cannot be lowered, just like the sheriffs and the prosecutors. And there is an official date, I don't know where it is, that if the board chooses to make adjustments downwards for these things, they have to do it prior to, is it the deadline date of filing? Yeah, there is. So, yeah, but for example, if there's an election year for these positions will be in 2024, sometimes if the board chooses to adjust them down, it has to be done by a certain date. So people applying for jobs know what the salary is.
So we can raise it.
Yes, yes, yeah, that's a separate. A prime example of that several years ago in Grand Traverse County, they decided they were going to lower the drain commissioner's salary. They cut it in half. There was some politics involved. I don't know the reason, but they decided they had to do it by a certain date. Now, for Board of Commissioners during that 4-year term, you cannot change your compensation. You cannot even increase to it. And that's total compensation. A couple of years ago, we increased the dental coverage. That I believe cleaning were free now versus.
Yes.
Anyway, it's a minor change, but we thought long-term dental health, it actually pays for itself. We made a change for a small period of time. We had to have a different plan for the commissioners that were on our insurance because that minor change increased the total compensation. So until those terms ended on December 31st of that year, we actually had to have 2 dental plans, one for all the employees and elected officials and one for the Board of Commissioners, because we could not have changed the total compensation. So, but back to your question, Rick, yes, on the elected officials, salaries can be adjusted upwards. You can't be adjusted downwards, and that's true for the chief deputies. Also, I found out we are one of the very few counties in the state that have their chief deputies, treasurer, clerk, register of deeds, hourly employees. Almost throughout the state, they are salary. And that, I think, would get rid of the controversy with overtime and who's working what time and so forth. And most of them don't have steps. This is a salary. You go in, this is a salary, and this is what it is. And then every year it gets adjusted just like everybody else. But virtually no counties have steps for elected officials or the chief deputies.
You mentioned earlier, I think I missed it. Are all three of them mandated or just say two?
No.
Just
all three.
two.
Three.
No, just
Oh,
two.
I'm sorry, the register of deeds is not.
Registered
You're
deeds
right.
chief is
Which
I'm
not.
sorry.
one isn't?
The
Registered-
registered deeds is not, it's not mandatory by state to have
Yeah,
a. have a chief.
some counties have combined register of deed and clerk's offices. We looked at here, it didn't make sense. The board chose not to do that. Some counties have done that. It's kind of across the board. I don't know the percentage. Jen, do you know how many?
Not off the top of my
Yeah.
head,
How
but
many clerk registers?
Yeah, how many clerk
Oh,
registers?
there's probably 40% of them now. at least.
40%? Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say a third, but you probably, between a third and 40% probably do have it combined. But if it's combined, obviously then there has to be a chief deputy clerk register. So that's one issue. The sheriff and under sheriff, if you look at that, if you look at the starting pay there. So let's say we have a brand new sheriff. They're only making 2,800 more than the under, or when you look at that, it's just $3,000, 200 more. So, and then when you look at the lieutenants are making, or even the road deputies that work a lot of overtime, there's people that, we have several employees here that make more money than the sheriff and under sheriff. You look at the duties and responsibilities, especially of the sheriff. And, people go in it for a lot of reasons, but it certainly is not financial. And so I think that's an issue.
Under this here, okay, say just example, say Kiesel stays on as under sheriff. In 2024, we get a new sheriff.
Mhm.
So Kiesel's gonna be up to full pay where?
Well, that's a question. That's another
And then a new
controversy.
sheriff, is he gonna start at 78?
Well, that's another most counties for all elected officials do not have pay scales.
One wage.
The sheriff gets X dollars.
Okay.
The clerk gets X dollars.
Then another thing I noticed on here, that we're not down to, but, okay, Joe's leaving, what, in April, May?
Who?
Oh, Povolo?
Yeah,
Okay.
So does that new person, where's that? I lost it here. Does that new person gonna start at 28?
okay, here's an update of that. And we actually discussed this, and I got a legal opinion several years ago. So the board sets the budget and the staffing levels for every department. So let's just use, say, treasurer's office, okay? So in your budget for this year, you have money for treasurer and money for all the employees. I'm assuming Darcy's at the top of the pay scale, right? Okay, so you set that staff level, you set the salary for that position of X dollars at the top. If that position becomes vacant throughout the year, John has the flexibility to start them anywhere he wants on the pay scale because the board set it at the top. Now, let's say next year, John has an opening and he has a chief deputy and we're still on this pay scale. And he decides he's gonna put them at the bottom. Because it's a brand new person and whatever reason, and that person leaves, but another person comes in that has a lot of experience. John would not have the flexibility to move them on the pay scale because when you approve the budget, you approve that position at this level. So that's another reason I think makes sense to put them on salary and just put a straight pay scale in there for all elected officials. We had a little bit of controversy with that a couple years ago, and I checked on that. Also with non-elected officials, department heads. For example, let's say building official. We get a brand new building official to replace someone that's at the top of the pay scale. It's my prerogative to put that person anywhere on the pay scale as long as in that year's budget it was approved at the top of the pay scale. Now, if the person that quit was at the starting salary, I would not have the flexibility to put them higher unless it went back to the board, because that's the pace, that's the amount of money you put for that position. So it depends.
Check, add to that, just to be really clear, it's talking department heads.
Yeah.
So with the elected officials, sheriff, treasurer, clerk, registered deeds,
Drain.
commissioner, prosecutor. Any of us leave during our term of office, depending, there's two different ways that the people get appointed. Those new appointees come in at the rate of pay the current elected official is making. And that can't be circumvented by the board trying to.
During that 4-year term.
And they can enjoy the other steps along the way, but you can't lower the budget to try to cut those pays. Just, you know,
So I know there's a lot of information I'm throwing at you, but it just proves the fact that I think it's time we look at this.
I mean, looking at this, I've looked at it for, no, not this, but thought about it for a week. I mean, I would recommend that, the 3 chief deputies and throw Laura in there and put them on what salary.
I was,
At what Jen's, old rate was.
so let's go with and then have a dialogue. Let me just finish. They have the big picture. So we had labor negotiations this year. And it went very well. And we have contracts for everyone. We did though, and this actually came from us for the Teamsters. The majority of people in this building are in the Teamsters. They're represented by the Teamsters unit, whether they choose to be a member or not, that's up to them. But they are covered by the Teamsters. The only person next door are the secretaries for the sheriff's office, right? There's no one else next door that's covered by the Teamsters.
We
Is
have
there?
1.5.
Yeah, 1.5,
Mhm.
right? There's
Yeah,
no one else.
and the Marine deputies are non-union.
Yeah, so it basically is all the employees here, plus the 1.5 secretaries next door. And we used to have, is that 7 pay scales, Jen?
We
Or
have,
grades?
we did have 7, yes.
Yeah, and we found out our starting pay was just below standard, especially this past year. And we actually had a very good discussion with our union rep, and they, of course, were very grateful. What we did is we consolidated, we got rid of the former grade 1. We had no one before at grade 1 anyway. And then we combined grade 2 and 3 to make them grade 2, and then just renumbered the rest of them. And so if you look at our starting pay now, our beginning salary for any position, grade 1 is $18.10 and goes to $22.93. And you have a list here of who's in which. I won't go over this, but it gives you an overview of who's in which position. And we implement that at the first of the year. So the people that were previously in grade 2 were bumped up to grade 3. So they got that increase plus a 3.25%. And we honored all of their seniority and anniversary dates, right, Jen?
Yes.
Yeah, so everyone got at least 3.25. Some people who were at the lower end got more because they were moved out. So I think that has gone very well. We had some concerns from people who were at grade 3, didn't feel it was right that people in grade 2 got moved out, but when you look at it, really, I don't think there's a lot of reasons, rhyme or reason, once again, why some positions were in 2, or some were in 3. I think a lot to do with who was in office at that time when those labor contracts were done. So I thought it was a fair way. The unit thought it was fair, and the vast majority of our employees thought it was fair also.
I'm looking at the grade 1 and 2 and looking at how many hours in a work week?
35 for
35.
most positions.
I don't know how.
It's a challenge.
I don't know how people make it.
They don't.
Yes, we had some openings. We seldom get more than 4 or 5 applicants. The IT position is very rare that we have someone in high quality. But when we posted the property assessor position, we had 1 legitimate applicant. And because we advertise on through the record, they go through Indeed and Monster. So sometimes we get applicants that just generate that people don't even know they're applying for jobs. But for the position in the clerk's office, how many do you have total? Approximately?
The last one for this one, I had 2 and 1 we searched out.
Yeah. It's very rare that in the last year or 2, we had more than 5 or 6 applicants total. And then you look at how many of them are really qualified.
They didn't care how good the hospitalization was. And most of them in Traverse City were making more. So I ran Traverse County losing their employees to the city.
And some people we interview and they're eligible and capable, we don't have them, but they look at the pay scale and say, sorry, I can work somewhere else. And also because we're 35 versus 40, people don't realize that. So you multiply, $20 an hour times 5 extra hours a week, that's $100. So when they do the calculations, some people not knowing, base it on a 40-hour week. So when they come and say it's 35, they go, oh, well, that's a little different.
Are a lot of people in grade 1 and 2 have second jobs?
Some, I don't honestly know to answer that.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Yeah, we don't survey that. I can't tell you. Is there anything I missed, Jen? Just a general overview?
No, nothing on the general overview.
Okay, so how do we proceed and fix this quagmire of issues? And I think they are legitimate. I think the best thing is do it piece by piece. I'd like to start with the chief deputy position. So we have 3 chief deputies, and then the administrator's assistant are all at the same pay scale, with the exception of the chief deputy clerk. That was raised several years ago when Jen stepped into, because if you didn't, you actually were gonna help me out, or were you gonna take a pay cut?
That'd be correct.
Yeah.
The finance was moved with me.
Yeah, because prior to that, the prior chief deputy who retired did not have those duties. And so when Jen applied, and if she would have taken it and still kept the responsibilities for finance, she actually would have taken a pay cut. It's another example. So the board adjusted that one. So that's the reason where the chief clerk's office, chief deputy clerk is higher than the rest for that reason. Also, several years ago, we made a change. For example, when Laurel came to my office when Georgia retired, if she was just a straight transfer, she would have taken a pay cut and would have changed her benefit package too. So we adjusted that. At least since I've been here, we've been trying not to penalize anyone for trying to advance their skills and move up. Because those are just 2 prime examples. And I think the third one probably is with Jen's position. So Jen's employee went from a union position with job security to a position with more responsibility at will. God forbid something ever happened to Jen, someone could come over and say, I want my own chief deputy, and she'd have a job for, now we find out it's 12 cents an hour more. I kept saying 11 cents an hour.
Well, that's originally what I thought.
Yeah, well, we'll forgive you for the 1 cent there.
Thanks.
Yeah, but that's a prime example, and they're hourly and they have steps, which I said is completely out of sync with the rest of the state.
You had mentioned the possibility of putting them on salary.
Mhm.
How many people, if we put them on salary, would lose money?
Well, it depends what you set the salary at. Well, my goal is no one's gonna lose money.
The chief deputy clerk would, in the sense to where if, depending on the avenue that check goes, because you have elections. So in 2021, there's technically only supposed to be 0 elections and there was 3. And so then the same thing. So to be true
no,
to the
okay.
case, you would probably want to look at the overtime that
Yeah.
Jen's office has, the overtime that John's office has, and then what the clerk's running with her election years, and try and come to a formidable median, between the 3.
But I was thinking, if you endorse the concept of switching to salary, we would work with the elected officials to come up with a recommendation that's fair. Because all jobs are different. And actually, I'm thinking if we expand it, we really should look at moving all of our elected officials to a set salary. So that would be all the elected officials plus the chief deputies. And we don't have to have steps. The best way to look at it is to look at my salary. I don't have steps, but every year I have received the same pay as everybody else. So when everyone else gets 3.25, I got 3.25. When people got 1 year 1.5, I got 1.5. And it'd be the same with the elected officials. So you'd get rid of that controversy of, okay, well, we have a brand new person coming in, so they're gonna start at the bottom of the pay scale. For
It is-
example, in theory, let's say Mr. Kiesel decided, or any of your chief deputies decide to run and be the chief officer. For Jim, it'd be a pay cut.
I went to the starting scale.
Yeah, to a starting scale.
Even in my current,
Yeah.
when I moved to this position,
Yeah,
they put me at level 1, not the starting pay.
yeah.
Even at level 1 was a raise, but it was like 49 cents an hour. It's all I took.
So you're taking all those extra
I lost
duties,
8,000 by
responsibilities.
taking this job.
Yeah.
See, but you don't get overtime, do you?
No.
See, that's how I can look
Yeah.
at it with the chief deputies.
Yeah.
They're kind of like the undersheriff for
Yeah.
their department heads.
And that's exactly why I think they should be switched over to salary.
Yeah,
So we don't have to deal with that. Now, obviously, we have to look at the whole history of what they're making to make it fair. But I think we can do that. So if there's agreement, what we can do is between now and our next meeting, we'll try to do some research analysis and look what would be a fair pace recommendation for the elected officials, for all the chief deputies, and for the administrative assistant position.
Would you be interested in having something Chet and I discussed about was you'd have a 22 non-wage schedule and then an elected official and second in command schedule? Is that something that sounds?
Yeah.
So there'd be two different, in the event you want to keep your department heads at steps.
Yeah, which I think does make sense.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, so I'm talking just about the elected officials and their chief deputies.
I would like to, though, as long as we're doing that, look at, I mean, we still have the senior services person.
Oh, yeah, I'm just,
Yep.
this is a step. We can't do it all at once. Yeah, I'm thinking this is gonna take us a while to do all this. But there's some things we can do quicker than other things. And I think we start off with the elected officials and the chief deputies and convert them to salaries.
I think one thing that the previous administrators didn't take into effect is, let's say, for instance, in John's first year, or even now, or any elected official, like the drain commissioner, if Steve was done, you don't even get to the top. That third year, that's your last year, and then you decide to retire, so if you have the one, and everybody knows the expectations that this is what you're coming in at, is one of the downfalls is where do you want to find that one, You start at the top.
There's
I
also
mean, you
been,
have to currently, do you increase more?
fortunately, we've not had that here, but it's happened in other counties in northern Michigan where there's conflict between the board members and elected officials. And sometimes they try to punish those people for next election and say, okay, we're gonna put them at the beginning of the pay scale, step 1 versus step 4. If you have a situation where the position is this much per year, people run for it, they know they're getting paid. It takes that politics out of it.
Did you read the ticker this morning?
No,
The Leelanau ticker focuses on wages in Leelanau County.
Oh.
And the Alice families. Beth and Ty show on Leelanau ticker. We got a lot of people in that population in our county that are Alice. Full employed, working hard, just a crisis away from poverty.
no, I agree, because I do it every day, because I see it every day, because I'm in these houses. And, $20 an hour, I mean, when I left 21 years ago, tomorrow, I was making $20 an hour, that was a lot of money.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
yes, and now you look at $20, if on a 40-hour week, that's 800 before taxes, so say about 600, that's $2,400. I don't know how people do it.
Yeah.
And our newly elected chair tells us that, well, we got such a good benefit package, and we do have a good benefit, but that doesn't put
You
food
still,
on the
you still got
table.
left.
Well, that's what, I think for people that have a spouse, that have steady income, this is a great place to work because we have great benefits and retirement. So those people are very grateful. And a lot of them come here and they come here because of the healthcare. No one can match us with healthcare. And I mean, that's not even debatable. We are the envy of every county, and even during negotiations, the union people, a lot of them represent a lot of different counties, says, yeah, whenever we're negotiating, Leelanau County always comes up. How come we can't be like Leelanau County? But yes, but if you're 25-year-old single, it's great that you have healthcare, but you need to pay that rent. And if rent's averaging over $1,000 a month now for a small place, I mean, it could be tough.
You can't get a,
It doesn't work. So I would like to work with the elected officials, come up with some recommendations and then get back together.
I like the salary part of it.
Yeah. And then, are you two in agreement that
Yeah.
That part, okay. Okay, then look at department heads and so forth. We've actually had some discussions. Jen talked to the, is it HR person at Grand Traverse?
Yep, I didn't write her name down. Yep.
Go.
And she mentioned to me that what can happen is there can be a lot of hard feelings when a job study is done, which everybody talks about. And so she opened up and stated that she would be more than willing to meet with Chet and I and kind of discuss her experience that she's had. She came to Grand Traverse County 3 years ago. She is also a grant writer. And she has a master's in English, and she had 8,000 employees, where she was previously in the Metro Detroit area and now has 500 and some. And so we were discussing, she actually called me to find out if we had benefits on our non-union for less than 15 hours, which we did with the MID specialist. And so we were discussing non-union personnel and how that works with PTO time. And so she mentioned that she would be more than willing to get together with Chet and I and discuss the wage study, kind of looking at it and the parameters, and then how it would maybe fit to us as an option.
I like that idea.
Yeah. So once again, I think this committee's gonna have to meet on a pretty regular basis for an extended period of time to resolve all these issues. You know, it reminds me when you say wage studies, it reminds me of the same thing with recycling and affordable housing. You do a survey, everyone's in favor of it, just not in my backyard. Right? And everyone's in favor of a wage study until the report comes out. Because no matter how you do it, you're never gonna get consensus. So that would be our next step in that. So I'd like to start off with the elected officials. Come up with a fair pay scale, get rid of the steps. And like Jen said, have this for department heads and other.
Second in command.
employees, But have a pay scale for the elected officials and the chief deputies.
And you think all the elected officials would favor that?
I don't know, which first time we're having this dialogue. I don't know if you even have heard about this. I talked to two of you about the chief deputies, but not about the.
Yeah, I'd say we explore.
Yeah. I think it takes the politics out of it. So when someone wants to run for the treasurer, someone wants to run for these, you know exactly what the salary is. Don't have to guess.
So
what
we
the steps
eliminate
are.
the step.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah,
for the elected officials.
right, yeah, no, I think that's fair.
So I mean, technically, Jen, you've been working here for how many years?
I've been here 12 years,
Okay.
registered for 1.
Yeah, and Jim, you've been here for 23 years. But in theory, they could be taking a pay cut or very little enhancement to run. I mean, there's other reasons, but from a financial standpoint, why would you take all the extra duties and responsibilities, especially like the sheriff, to be on call constantly and deal with all these issues for almost as much money? Sometimes even it'd be a pay cut for some of our people.
And my situation was unique. There's others behind me that probably won't follow my footsteps. Because I was grandfathered in, I did see a pension improvement.
Yeah.
But it was, I mean, which helped offset. You're right, I don't get overtime, but the hours have not decreased any. I just don't get compensated for those hours. I work weekends and I'm here well more than 8 hours a day most days, so.
I know when I took the chief deputy position, I fell right within a period where they didn't have it grandfathered in, where you could move into keep your
Oh, yeah.
retirement, and I lost.
That's right.
I had to go backwards
Yeah.
when I took the chief deputy position.
Yeah, I remember that. We checked with MERS and we could not do that.
Then to answer further, in the sheriff's office, roughly 50% of the employees have secretary. We track that. At a guess, it's at least 50%, if not more, have secondary jobs.
All right, anything else on that? So we'll work on that. And at some point, Jen will contact the Grand Traverse HR person. I'm John blanking her name myself.
I know, I didn't write it down.
Anyway, it's gracious that she offered to help us with this.
Mhm.
And let's just see what they do. I mean, why start from scratch? Because I think there's some things we can do outside of Amber Weber and Andrew, assuming he becomes a full-time. All of our department heads are at the level year 4, right?
Yes.
There's no one else, right?
No,
Yeah. So in that may take some of the controversy out. Because if we change the starting salaries outside of those 2 people, these steps don't impact them because they're already all at the top. They basically are at the top of the pay scale, they know what they're gonna be getting.
Is the goal to have this work done in time for budget process next summer? Is that possible?
That'd be the goal. It can't,
Yeah.
depends what else, but yes.
My goal would be like April 15th,
Well, good luck with that. I don't think-
before you start rolling into budget in May.
You're a numbers person, you get that done by April 15th. So in 2 months, today's the 10th, 9th?
Yep,
Okay,
yep,
all right.
that'll be a goal, as long as it's up with everybody
Question
else.
I've never understood. What does Steve has to make? He just doesn't live on 15,000.
He has the
No.
soil conservation too, but that would be an elected official that we would be looking at in accordance with all the other surrounding counties and pay scale, yeah.
Yeah, and he is part-time and, you know, outside the last 2 years, there are some years that there really has not been much work.
Now he has 6 active
But
drains.
This year, you could argue he's getting way underpaid for, yeah.
And
I
an- and an
believe Rancheros
interesting
County
speech.
just changed theirs from, they increased it substantially. And I can't remember what they did it for, but during the last cycle, I think they increased it quite a bit. Because one time, because of politics, they decreased it,
Yeah.
the
I
controversy
just
on
remember
that
back
Mitchell Creek project with,
when
Mr.
Rita
Klaus.
Kennedy was down there. I mean, she was making a good,
Yeah.
she was full-time, making a good,
yeah.
good wage. And
Yeah.
I just wondered how they survived on that. but-
Well, I mean, Steve has that, plus he's a farmer. So yes,
Oh, okay.
the average person, you cannot run to this
But,
office.
every time I'm here, he's in the building, so I'm like.
Well, that's a good example. If, let's just say, let's just use an example. If he didn't have other sources of income, based on all the work that's taking place this year, all these drain field, I don't know how he could do it then. Survive financially.
How much does he work for soil conservation?
I think it varies. Oh, he works there, I don't know how many hours a week.
I don't,
He's not full-time though.
No, but it's pretty substantial. But that's a separate department. We don't, that's a separate entity. But I think he's at least 3 days a week, I think.
Well, he's not a part-time elected official. You could say that about any elected official. He's elected to do the job that he's hired to do. And he is going to ask if it is not proposed for a pay adjustment. This wage to get it out to, I think it's at 12,000 now,
it's 15.
15, used to be about 4,000. And we did have more retired engineers originally that ran for it. We also had some younger people over the years that ran for it. But he does, I know he wants to pursue it, it's not pursued on his behalf.
Yeah, I think those type of issues are gonna continue.
Right.
And I think there's no question about that we're getting a steal at $16,487.
Well, it sounds like it'd be helpful to have a timeline. If our goal is to do it by budget time, when should we have the next meeting and when should we have a proposal?
Well, let's look at that, because I'm not sure we're gonna be able to meet that deadline in 2 months to get all of this done. We can shoot for it, but I don't see that happening.
Well, I think you're looking at your indiscrepancies now, like you're talking about in Jen's situation. So if you move a little quicker on the elected.
Yeah, that's what
Bring
I'm
that
saying.
to
Let's
the
start with
board.
that.
And then we'll study the non-union so that you're ready. For instance, in the Teamsters, this was a 4-step, so it will start 1, 2, 3, 4. And so we eliminated basically eliminated start, made that your 1 year and then recalculated. So that is an option for you to do here in the department heads as well.
Yeah.
So right now, let's say you don't have anybody at the start. So if you made your 1 year your start and you had 1, 2, 3, then you have that, it's all done within 4 years.
We can
And
talk about that.
yeah, and that would be, I know that the undersheriff may have some input that he'd like to state on the Marine deputies, because that would be a starting rate of 1824 instead of 1660 if the start goes away.
Well, I'd like to see the Marine deputy at least make enough money where he could pay rent, because he lived with me all summer free.
So those kind of ideas, I think Chet and I would,
Yeah.
if we can move forward and then bring back
I think
recommendations.
it's doable to look at the salaries of the elected officials and the chiefs sooner versus later. The rest of it just with everything else going on, I'm just not sure we can meet that deadline. It'd be great if we could. I just don't,
Right.
I don't want to guarantee that deadline.
Correct.
But if we're looking at the chief deputies
Mhm.
and the elected,
Mhm.
and say we throw Laurel in there, we're looking at nine positions, just right.
Yeah.
We could probably take care of.
That I think is doable. That'd be my goal. All right, so if we, okay, so everyone's agreement, that's our next step. We'll come up with a plan and then we'll meet with the elected officials, talk about it and come up with a proposal at some point here in the near future.
I'd like to throw one more in to the list of 9 that you're talking about, because I believe we have a real issue with the senior services. We've talked about it.
Yeah. As you know, we brought that up this summer. It was a 4-3 vote against changing it.
But we said we were gonna
Yep.
take a look at it
Yep.
when we
We can do that.
looked
Yep.
at salaries.
Yep.
I think we must do
Did
that.
we
Okay.
give her a raise?
We adjusted the pay scale. We didn't give her, well, did you get a raise? Yes, but it wasn't based on her request, based on her skills and everything.
She didn't get to 10,000?
No,
No.
no,
I
oh,
thought
no.
she did.
No, oh, no, that got turned down.
Oh, I thought we gave that to her.
No, she got a couple thousand just because,
It'd be,
I looked
she
at
went
pay
from
scale.
60 to 64, I think is what it was.
Was it?
And then with the
Oh, I thought we gave it-
3.25.
no, that got voted down.
So I think we ought to look at that
Okay,
again.
yep, all right.
Agree?
Mhm.
Well, that gives us some assignments here. A couple other things I want to talk about that. Well, we talked about the recommendation of the chief deputy clerks, and actually we expanded that to talk about the elected officials too. But if we're gonna do it, we should do it all as one package, which makes sense. And the nice thing is, the next election is into 2024, so we're doing it now in a non-political year for the elected officials. And as you know, the county commissioners may switch to 4-year terms also, starting with the 2024 election. I mean, that's in fact our discussion. But really, we have not looked at the salary of the commissioners in the last 20 years, was it? Michelle?
Right, but remember, when you look at their salary, it's a full benefit.
Oh, I know, but we haven't looked, I'm saying, we should look at that too, because we haven't looked at it in many, many years.
As well as your per diem.
Yeah,
I've got the last update in my office if you want.
it's been quite a while. Yeah, to look at that. We did do a survey a couple of years ago. And for counties our size, I think we surveyed 10 counties. We're about in the middle.
I sure hope we don't start paying commissioners what they're worth.
What they're well,
We're overpaid now, aren't we?
depends who you
We're
talk to.
overpaid, yeah.
But put it in perspective, the Grand Traverse Band Board of Commissioners, each of them get, I could be off a little bit, I think $70,000 plus benefit.
75.
How much is it?
75 for the members and the chairs, like 90.
Yeah. So, yeah, and there are some county boards, especially in the urban areas, that are full-time salary positions, so. We'll let the county board decide if they want
I think we ought to stick with this.
to. Okay. But at some point, I think she's right about the per diem and that type of stuff we should talk about. Couple other things, and this is just my personal recommendation I'd like to talk about is, let's start with the treasurer's office. As you know, John has had health issues for the last 2 years. And I think you're making progress, and we're glad that you're here, but through no fault of John's, he has not been able to be here on a full-time basis. He does communicate regularly, has contact, but Darcy has really stepped up to the plate. And I have not talked to John about this. I'm gonna just mention, I'm gonna bring it up. So I honestly don't know how John feels about this, because I didn't want to bring it up and put him on the spot. But I think she has done an outstanding job. I think has really taken a lot of duties and responsibilities. And I think we should recognize for that. And I like to suggest we all consider giving her a stipend of $2,000, a one-time stipend, just as a token of appreciation. I did check with legal counsel, because she's an hourly employee. We cannot give stipends on a regular basis, but you can recognize people for their efforts at no more than 2 times a year. We recommend for extra duties or beyond the call of duties. That's perfectly legitimate. You can't say to anybody that's hourly, well, for your extra duties, we're gonna give you X cents more per hour without changing everything. Because you can't mix salary duty bonuses that with salary employees. But if you do it for recognition of work that has happened, it's perfectly legal. And John, I'm gonna put you on the spot here, but I think, in my perspective, John or Darcy has gone beyond the call of duty.
Well, she has, and she's really grown personally and professionally, taken a leadership role in my office. And done the more I was asked. She's done a fantastic job.
the other person, and I've talked about this during a budget meeting, and it's actually in the Parks and Recs budget. You approve the administrative stipend of 3,000 some, is it 3,600, 3,800, Jen? Jen, do you remember?
39,
3,900?
$75 a week.
Laurel has taken on the park duties for the last couple of years. It's not her responsibility. She has not only been at every meeting, she has kind of led up through. And for her efforts, I'd like to also recommend a $2,000 stipend, which is in the Parks and Recs budget. These are one time, they're not per week, they're not any commitment for the future. This is in recognition of all their work.
You want a motion on that?
I just want to get your input, see if any thoughts or dialogue.
No problem with it.
I move that we accept the administrator's recommendation and take that recommendation to the board.
Second,
Okay, I'll do that on the March agenda.
All approve? Aye. Aye.
okay,
Thank you. John actually brought up a good point, and we were going to talk about it, but Melinda's not here, about the broadband. The board, as you know, made a commitment for 3.2 million from the ARPA, but the total project we had to commit was 5 million. So Commissioner Rushton brought up the fact, and other people agree, we need to have a finance meeting and talk about where are our finances, how much money we have in the rest of our accounts. And we're obviously going to hope that, I'm very confident there'll be more ARPA money coming. There's almost no doubt about that, either directly to us or through indirect grants. I think I mentioned yesterday, this proposal that to set up an office of rural broadband and put 2 billion in it that counties could apply for. That's one option. The other option is there's more than enough money to give every county another allotment identical to the first allotment. Question is how will it happen and when? But somehow we do have to come up with a 1.8 million difference. And Melissa's not here, and I don't think you're ready to talk about our budgets, but for our next meeting, I'd like to have a dialogue on that. We have some time before we have to commit to that money. Because right now, we don't even have the 3.2, we got half of the payment. But our next meeting, I really would like to focus on that. Between John and you, Jen, if you could come up with a budget update on where we are with our finances.
Jen, over the budget. Under her purview, I'd like to bring up, revenue sources.
Yeah. I think that'd be helpful.
As we've done in the past.
So we should set another meeting date for
Yeah,
that.
I think you both agree we should have that
Yeah.
dialogue. I didn't want to do it today with Melinda here, these other things going on, and we haven't had a chance to talk about that, so I didn't want to put them on the spot here this morning, but I was gonna bring that up, so thank you for bringing that up. Any other thing that we missed? Jen, can you think of any other?
I think everything was covered.
Anybody in the audience? Michelle, is there a topic that we missed?
Okay, then let's look at the calendar. And then we'll check with Melinda.
Yeah, obviously, we're looking at March sometimes. That's. I'll give her the great news that she's a chairperson.
Yeah.
I'm sure she'll be very excited about. Today's the night,
How about the first day of spring?
21st.
March 21st? Oh, I was thinking more like the first week in March.
No, I got too much going on. That won't work. No, it's gonna. That was very busy for me. And I don't think we're gonna have time to do all these and come up with proposals. I like to have time to put up with a firm proposal for the salaries for the elected. So I would think mid-March to. So we have board meetings on the 8th and the 9th. Or I'm sorry, 8th and 15th.
I will be gone until the 14th.
Oh, and I'm gone the 16th through the 21st, actually.
so you can be here 21st.
Pardon me,
You
no,
won't be,
I'm coming back. How about the 23rd?
Works for me.
yeah,
10 o'clock?
Is time good? That'll give us time to work on it and really we'll try to come up with a firm proposal, and then we'll talk about the budget also. 23rd? I'll check with Melinda. Jen, that's not spring break week, that's,
Just beforehand.
I think that's the figure.
well, by then we should have. You'll be here, right? Because spring break is the following week, is that right?
26th, I leave.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So we said 10 o'clock?
Mhm.
Okay, and if you two can give an update to the board on Tuesday, just an update, general update. Agenda.
$1,000 going to get added to the agenda for Tuesday night,
I'm sorry, the what?
The $2,000.
No, that'll be the
Tuesday
March
night,
agenda.
March,
or not till March?
No,
March agenda.
I don't want to do the late edition.
Oh,
I'm talking about the March agenda. Because I come up with a rational, and I won't be here Tuesday night. Because Gwen and I want to come up with the, I don't want to surprise and just spring this on people as a late edition.
So we won't mention that at the board.
Well, you can bring it up, but I'm going to come up with a record. I'll leave it up to two of you.
you might want to bring it up, they're going to see it in the minutes.
Okay, okay,
It's a motion.
but not as an action item, just.
No.
Okay.
Well, I'm hoping the two of you can just give an update on things that we talked about.
Any other business to do? Board member comment? Public comment? Administrator comment?
I'll set up a meeting where elected officials and Jen and I will come up with a proposal by the 23rd.
Motion to adjourn? So move.
Thank you. It's a good first step. I think you have a better overall picture of the issues we're dealing with.
Well, the next meeting will go much better because we'll have our leader.
Our chair will be here to lead us.
Jen, would you want to check with Lucy?
Should change everything.
Oh,
we
yeah.
talked
Can
about.
we talk to him a second about
Hey,
the mess we created?
Hey, hang on. Special meeting request. If you two of you could sign.
Did we adjourn?
Yes.